Hello and welcome back to another edition of Who is the Mole Season 5, the after show. Um, I'm assuming no one just stumbled upon this, so you have probably followed all along this whole time as one of our loyal 6 or 7 viewers. So we're going to jump back into things.
Are we going to do introductions? I'll go first this time. I'm Spencer, but
And
with
I'm
jazz
Jamie.
hands.
And I'm Jamie, and I don't do jazz hands.
Boo. That's boring. Um, so we had a very exciting round. I enjoyed this
Oh,
round.
yeah. It was a
Um,
long round. This is one of our longest rounds, I think.
and we even went out of our way to try to make it shorter because, like, I guess to get ahead of ourselves a little bit, we were mean, and this is Jamie's idea, which is a good idea. We forced the group to do the two tasks at the same time, pretty much, just to save on time because they were both very low intensity tasks anyway.
Yeah,
So
they're just
just
time consuming.
mm-hmm. So like I mean collectively, like honestly, like if you were to put in the amount of time that each person did between like the two tasks, it's probably like an hour to 90 minutes spread over like a 6 day period.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they were both very low intensity. But I guess to just jump right into the fun stuff that we had noticed, at least whatever I've written down. So we had Alex got eliminated last time, and we were all very sad about it. We weeped. Um, and Alex was the treasurer for the groups. This was actually the first time that a treasurer has been eliminated. Was this last time with Alex? Literally every other person in the game that has been treasurer is still in the game, but this is the first time they've actually had to pick a new treasurer, which was funny because when we tell them like, "Hey, you actually have to pick somebody," Brian, whom that there is a big conspiracy against, that people don't want him to be treasurer, is like, I have a suggestion about who should be treasurer, which was very funny to see. And then Victoria immediately hops in and like changes her name to future treasurer Shandy. So it would be like, oh no, it should be Victoria instead. Which that was funny, but I
Somehow
was
Brian did get picked though.
yeah, I was very confused how that happened. I went to sleep, I woke up, and it was just like Brian's treasurer, and I'm like, I think like Amanda or something was the tiebreaker for that or something. She was the
Mhm.
deciding person. I don't know. It was very, very
Interesting.
weird to see, but somehow Brian is now treasurer. And so who maybe Victoria will be treasurer next time. Maybe Victoria's finally going to get her chance to shine. She's the last person to not be treasurer. So much for a question of like, has the mole been treasurer? Yes or no? Because they fucking all been treasurer because they're insane. Okay, let's see. What were the other pre-assignment stuff that was funny? Oh, Shandy and Victoria in their side chats. It's just funny because a lot of people have suspected Victoria and have got eliminated suspecting Victoria. But between the two of them, they don't think Victoria's suspicious at all. They assume that everyone is actually suspecting Shandy. So that's just another funny misconnect from reality, the assumption versus what it actually is.
Actually, that kind of makes sense. Like where
Mm-hmm.
they're coming from makes
Oh
sense
yeah, oh
because
yeah.
Victoria has brought in a lot of money in the game before this round. Shandy has brought in very little money. So yes, people are suspecting Victoria, but it would make more sense for them to actually um, be suspecting Shandy.
Mm-hmm. Um, and the next thing I've written down, Jim, which I'll let you explain, is that I have Veronica, Jennifer, and Susan written down.
So this game, I love this cast so much. It is just so funny. Like even as the numbers have gotten smaller, like the times that people will misremember people's names, even when they see their names popping up in the chat. So we've had a couple of people. Go ahead,
I was
Spencer.
going to say, well, I guess in their defense, they're all named Shandy right now, so I guess it's hard
They
to
are,
keep
but this
track
is
of
a
who their names are.
long-term thing. So so Jessica, right, at times is referred to Amanda just as Susan, which is the last name Amanda has on Facebook because it's her middle name. So she actually thinks it's Susan at points. And then we've also had Jessica referred to as Jennifer. And my personal favorite, Victoria, is Veronica pretty consistently.
Yeah, I think it wasn't that last video that Amanda submitted. She referred to Victoria as Veronica.
Mm-hmm.
That was a new one.
Yeah. But I love it. It's funny.
Entertaining, at least.
Yeah, and I'd say the other thing that I've noticed going into this round, so like right after Alex was eliminated before the challenges started, it seems people at this point have gotten a lot more like siloed into what they think is happening and who it is. So like just with Alex getting eliminated, people and like, oh, I must have been right. It really is this sort of thing, like even more so than before. Like I think people are doubling down on suspicions, which is really funny when you see the actual results to the quizzes. So,
Yeah,
so
it's
would you say that you
pretty.
noticed that, Spencer?
Oh yeah, it's just tunnel vision. This game is just tunnel vision. Everyone has tunneled for the most part.
Yeah, there's a little bits of spreading or splitting, but not a ton at this point.
Which is funny because that's the exact advice that our guest this round gave. We have Joseph, the winner of season 3, comes in to give his advice, and he says, yeah, I'd be on 1, maybe 2 people right now, but you should really stop spreading. It's like, nope, if you're spreading right now, you'd be very safe. But okay, Joseph, I guess you won. So whomst am I to say what is good or bad strategy? I certainly haven't won them all. So
your future mole winner, Shandy Spencer.
Thank you. Okay. So which assignment do you want to explain, and then I can explain the other one.
I'll explain swap.
Okay. So we are on to swap, so you can go off on that one.
Swap, how do I explain it? So basically, I'll explain it to you just like I explained it to the players, and this write-up took me a long time to put together. But basically, imagine that there is a Ferris wheel, and there are 6 buckets to this Ferris wheel. So each player started the game in their own separate Ferris wheel bucket, numbered 1 through 6, and that was basically just a separate chat. And throughout the assignment, they could only chat with people about the assignment if they were in their same Ferris wheel bucket. So at the start of the assignment, that was no one. We said that each player had with them 2 different colored tokens, and the colors that we had were red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and diamond. So 7 different colors. And they were each worth a monetary value ranging from $1,000 to $5,000 for the pot, with diamonds being a mystery. If the player ended the game with 6 tokens, all of the same color. So why it's called swap is you have to swap the tokens that you have with other players or into the Ferris wheel buckets itself in order to end up with a set of 6 tokens, all of the same color. So again, you started the game with 2. You could continue picking up tokens. You could pick up to 2 tokens from any bucket that you're in one turn, but you cannot hold more than 6 tokens at one time. So, at one point you could have, 2 reds, 2 oranges, 2 yellows if you wanted. But then if you wanted to pick up another yellow from your next bucket, you'd have to put down one of the other ones to swap it out. Players were in their bucket for up to 12 hours. Then they had to do 2 things. So the 2 things they had to do were to, in that bucket, message saying like what they were putting down, what they were picking up, if they're making any changes. And then they had to tell us in their diary chat which bucket they were moving to next. Because it was 12 hours per round and the players got to make 8 moves, this time it lasted for like 4 days total. So that's why it was a little bit of a longer one. Spencer, what am I missing so far?
I feel like that's basically all the rules. The only other thing is that you can only swap 2 tokens at max, so you can either only pick up 2, or if someone else is in the bucket with you, you can swap a max of 2 with each other. You can't, there's no uneven trade, so you can't do like 1 for 2, 2 for 1, or anything like that. And when it comes to swapping to buckets, you can only have 2 people in any given bucket. So if multiple people were to pick the same bucket, and this is a very important rule for this time we ran it in specific, if multiple people go to the same bucket, then everyone within that bucket will just be randomized amongst the other buckets.
And that's a rule because, we want people to be working together in this assignment to an extent, but like pretty early on, there could be a way to game it where, oh, whoever you speak to, just tell them to go to bucket 5, because that could help with coordinating, when we don't want 6 people in the same space. So it just helps with that. It makes it a little bit more challenging of an assignment. I like that. And this is the second time that we've done it. And I'd say both times we've had really positive results because the team has some level of success, but others are not successful. So I think it's pretty balanced in that sense. What do you think, Spencer?
Oh yeah. I'm always like this one particular, I'm always like so stressed out being like, is it too many moves? Is it too little moves? Or like, do we have the right number of tokens? And I still think that, yeah, after both times having done it, it seems to the group succeeds, but they don't overwhelmingly succeed and they don't overwhelmingly fail either. So I think that makes it a good assignment ultimately, because they could have, like, if the group tried a little harder, if they're a bit more coordinated, and if they worked a little harder and got a little luckier, because the luck is a big part of this, they could have earned a lot more money. And certainly if they were a bit more unlucky in a lot of ways, because this group was still lucky to in ways that they earned money, they could have earned less money. So like it felt very earned in a lot of ways.
So toward the end, it became very clear that multiple people were wanting to go to bucket 6. And when they landed in a different bucket with someone else, like they would say that. So like they would know, like, okay, we are both already trying to go for bucket 6, but no one really put together, okay, there's already 2 of us who are going for the same one. If even one more person does, then no one's going to go there. So I just think that piece was missed for people, was part of it. And then another rule to bring up that's important is, so again, each color was worth a different dollar amount. So for instance, red was worth the most at 5,000, and yellow was worth the least at 1,000. The other rule is that out of the players who completed a set of 6 tokens, all of the same color, whoever completed the one worth the most money would win some advantage. We did not say what it was, but it did inspire a little bit of competitiveness, perhaps. So
The
that's,
goal,
I think, the whole assignment.
yeah. The goal of that was kind of just like encourage people to more likely go for like the reds or like the more expensive tokens. However,
not enough for 2 people to complete any set.
No, there's more than 6, because like if we were to have just 6, and like it is all the mole has to do is pick up one of every color, and like then that's the assignment, and they can't win anything, and that doesn't feel particularly fair.
Balance.
So there is not a ton of tokens, but there are a bit more for each over 6.
Yeah, the mole single-handedly cannot screw the team from making any money.
Yeah.
Oh, they can certainly help in that process, though.
Yes, yeah. But for so like the goal of like having that advantage given to whoever earns the most, try to get people to go for like the same color tokens. However, oddly enough, with this group, that wasn't really a problem, because you had Brian that was just going for blues, Shandy was going for green, Dexter was going for purple, and Victoria was going for orange. And so the only real overlap that we kind of had early on was Amanda and Jessica were both kind of splitting between red and diamond about which one they were going for, and we're trying to like figure out which one did they really want to like go all in going for. So the group got lucky in that kind of sense, where for the most of the game, there's really only 2 out of the 4 people were ever going for the same color tokens.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it didn't stop some people. Like Dexter had a red for a while, I think, before he put it down. And I think he might have had, at some point, he might have had one of Victoria's oranges. I don't know, but
yeah, and interestingly, like Brian succeeded very quickly. I feel like he had 6 blues like very early on in the assignment.
It was by the 3rd or 4th swap, and then Shandy wasn't too far after him with like the 5th or 6th one. I think she had it by 5.
Yeah, and then no one else finished it.
Because what ended up happening was Amanda's strategy for this, which I do think she did well, was originally to go for like the reds and the diamonds to kind of block those. And then she just decided to go for one of every type, now that like things had gotten scarcer, in the hopes that that could be the one that'll block other people, which did end up working in a lot of ways, because, for example, Victoria was going for orange, and she had 5 oranges in her possession. So she just needed one more. And there were only 7 oranges, I think. So Amanda had 1 orange, and the last remaining orange that was even up for grabs was in bucket 6. But that
That
was
no one could get to, so that really worked.
But that was for the last 4 moves. No one got to bucket 6 after the last 4 moves because everyone kept trying to go there, which is very funny to see.
I loved Amanda in this assignment because it was like a great opportunity for her to just be like super aggressive in her sabotage, like in a way that people weren't really able to see. So like I do think that going for red and diamond was the right strategy to start off with, because red is worth the most and diamond again was worth a mystery amount, which she didn't even know what it was worth. So like blocking others from getting much of that until halfway through the game, I think was pretty gnarly. And then ultimately deciding to just like pick up one of everything, like it's really blocked people at different points.
And then it was very funny just to see that how basically no one ever even thought about getting yellow, which would be the easiest one to get, because there were so many damn yellows, because yellow was worth only 1,000. So there was a surplus of those.
There were like 3 yellows in 2 different buckets.
Yeah, so it would have been very easy to get those. Let's see, what were the other fun things that had happened during that assignment? I mean, it was just so like the whole thing of bucket 6 was just so
bucket
funny.
2 was also funny.
Yes, bucket 2. So it was a weird thing that had happened between Amanda and Dexter, where most other people after like the first few moves immediately got to 6 tokens. Like they started with 2, they picked up 2 in their first bucket, and they swapped and then pick up 2 in the next bucket, so they'd get to 6 right away. Amanda and Dexter didn't do that. They kind of waited a bit before they maxed out their hand. And so they both, I think it was on the 3rd move, they both ended up in bucket 2 together. And so that's when they decided to pick up like the rest of theirs and get up to 6. So it left only 1 token in bucket 2. And so when the next person, or no, they picked up everything that was in it. There was a point. Yeah. Because when I had gotten there was only 1 token in there already, just because like 2 people had come in there. I think it started with 5. 2 people came in there and picked up 2 each, so took out 4. So there was 1 left. They came in there with less than the maximum, so they didn't need to replace anything, even though they came later. So it left bucket 2 being empty, which is the first time.
All the assignment.
Yeah, for the majority of the assignment, bucket 2 just had nothing in it. That was the first time I ever had an empty bucket.
Bucket 2 completely alone with no tokens even in it.
Yes, that kept happening because they kept getting randomized, and they just kept happening to get randomized into bucket 2. Or they would willingly pick bucket 2 because word hadn't gotten to them that bucket 2 was empty and that you just shouldn't go to bucket 2. So that was really funny to see. The other thing was just there was little sabotages that happened for the other players that never really paid off into much, because like Dexter, I was surprised Dexter was mulling himself. He was going for purple, but wasn't actually planning on finishing it. So he was holding on to a diamond and then was holding on to a red for a bit. And then at one point just randomly dropped a token in 2 near the end of it, just because he was like, why not?
Which that was really funny though, because it was one of the ones I think that Jessica needed, so it brought her up to 5.
Yeah, he dropped
so she started to get excited, and then it didn't end up working out anyway.
Which I'm surprised no one thought more about that, being like, why would someone just randomly drop a token in bucket 2 when there was nothing in there to swap for? That was funny to see. And then there was also like Brian, which I was surprised that Brian, I guess it was just because the advantage, he thought it'd be like freebies or something. But I was surprised Brian didn't more deliberately sabotage us when he actually earned money. But he did lie to Jessica at one point about there being red tokens and then like bucket 4 or something like that when she was going for red. When there weren't actually any of those red tokens there, he was just going to waste her time. But that was at the point where Jessica just spent 4 turns in a row trying to go to bucket 6, which I remember being very funny, because there was a different time where someone had mentioned, I remember there being a diamond in bucket 1 or a red in bucket 1. I can't remember what it was. And she was like, oh, thanks for the tip. I'm going to bucket 6. And then Brian's like, oh, there's a red in bucket 4. Oh, thanks. I'm going to bucket 6. So that was a fun kind of storyline to see happen, as people kept telling Jessica, oh, the stuff you need is in other buckets. And she's like, screw that. I'm going to bucket 6. Which I guess in her defense, there was a red in bucket 6. So like, and no, there wasn't a diamond in there. Because Dexter took that one. But like
Yeah.
still, if she was going for red, there was a red in there.
Jessica was so funny in that assignment. Oh my gosh. I simultaneously thought it was hilarious, but also felt really bad for her because she spent most of the assignment first trying to go to bucket 6, but really just to pick up the diamonds was what she settled on, like thinking it's going to be worth something. So not only was she unsuccessful at it, but so diamond was a mystery value. So diamond ended up being worth absolutely nothing anyway. So she was unsuccessful at completing it, but even if she had, it would have been worth nothing, which is just awful but hilarious at the same time.
That was great to see.
And she thought it was funny though at the end. So
oh yeah. I especially liked when she was like, I don't think bucket 6 exists. Like I keep checking the rows, be like, is there even a bucket 6? And I just not going anywhere. And then there was even some people, I think Amanda and Dexter, which, Amanda was obviously talking out her ass, but at least Dexter was being kind of truthful about it, being like, I think bucket 6 was just shut down for some reason. That we deliberately closed bucket 6 as hosts. I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about there, pal. We're not going to help you out. We want you to fail.
Yeah. Yes, gosh.
But the group did at least manage to earn, like, because there was a blue and a green completed. Shandy had green completed and Brian had blue completed. They got $5,000, which is very good for this group. They managed to earn a lot of money in that assignment.
Yeah, so Brian's was worth $3,000, Shandy's was worth $2,000. That means Brian had the one that was the most expensive, that was complete, so he won the advantage. So his advantage, unfortunately, was not freebies or penalty points or an exemption. It was something a little different. So basically, he was told ahead of time 2 sets of the mole statements that will be on the next quiz. So Spencer and I did a video chat with him and gave him that information verbally. He could write it down if he wanted to, but basically it's a way to, if you're splitting and 2 of the items, you can think about, okay, how do you want to choose statements? Because again, our mole statement quiz, for every correct answer you pick, you get a point, but if for every wrong answer you pick, you lose a point. So it's like very important to like be thoughtful about what you pick. And then also one of the items that we gave him was it was which starting bucket was the mole in. So the statements were the mole was in Ferris wheel bucket 1 at the start of the assignment, the mole was in Ferris wheel bucket 2 at the start of the assignment, etc. So because he knew that that was going to be on the quiz, he could go around and like try to glean that information from others, because that was the one item that we didn't really share about. And also just knowing the items, you can take the quiz faster.
Yeah, and he did take the test fastest this time. Spoilers, unfortunately, it didn't matter, but yeah, he did take it faster. If there was a tie, he would have been safe.
But yeah, unfortunately, there wasn't for him. And so Brian is the one leaving us tonight, which we'll talk more about that later, but surprises me. It doesn't so much surprise me because I know like who he was going for. He's been going for someone wrong for quite some time now, but it surprises me because he was someone who we both expected to, make it to the end initially. But regardless, he's been a lot of fun to have. He's really added a lot to the game. So I'm glad he did make it this far.
Yeah, we'll eulogize Brian at the end of this, but we can get. What the hell is? What the hell is next assignment? Oh yeah, it was. I called it Code Painters. I couldn't think of like a nice quippy name for it, but whatever. But this is a classic mole assignment from the show. If you're a big fan of the show, you'll have recognized it because we just stole it because it's great. And I was
borrowed,
distilled, inspired by, loosely based upon, whatever you would like. But I mean, both of these assignments, I really like Swap the first time we ran it, so I was excited for this one. And I love this assignment on the show, so I was looking forward to it a lot. And I think it was a big success, at least mechanically how we ran it. I was a big fan of everything, even if the group did very well at it. I think it was still a lot of fun. I think the group really enjoyed it.
The group needs to do well at some point.
Yes, the group is allowed to earn money, and then even on the show, I think this assignment the group usually does well at. Like, it's a deceptively.
It depends upon the mechanics, because sometimes they make it so you have to get everything right to win anything.
But I even think like in the season of De Mol Belgium, when they did it like you gave them the
Yeah,
swap.
they
I
did
think they
there,
did
but
earn
not
it.
in the US one.
Gotcha. But still, like, I think it's a deceptively easy assignment. Like, it seems like it's going to be much harder than I think it actually is, which is fine because it's fun still, regardless. So what it was is that we made the treasurer, which was Brian, need to divide the group into 3 groups: 1 person who is a talker, 3 artists, and 2 people who needed some time off. And so then we went to like each person individually with their diary. We went to Shandy first because she was picked as the talker. And we're like, okay, so your job for this assignment is that we're going to send you 3 pictures, 3 paintings, and we need you to create YouTube videos with a max of 3 minutes in length. And we were like, if you go a little bit over, like, that's fine, but just try to keep it like 3 minutes of talking. But just for technical difficulties and stuff of like pausing and unpausing the video and stuff, we weren't going to be super harsh with that time limit, but just like within reason of 3 minutes. Describe these paintings, 1 for each video, 3 minutes long for each. And so she did that. We tried to give her a limited time because we like did it like we'd like you to do it within like the next 30 minutes to an hour, so you don't have all night long to like think of what's the best way to, describe these paintings. So she did that. She made 3 very funny and entertaining videos. And then we went to the artists, each on their own, and they had to schedule a time with us. We told them that we will the talker has described 3 different paintings that you're each going to get one. You need to schedule a time with us, and you will have to replicate this painting. You can use whatever material you like. So you can use, your whatever computer program you have. You can use markers, you can use paint, you can use crayons, color pencils, pen, if you want to do it like that. Like, you can do it however you want to. But you should need that beforehand. Schedule a time, then we'll send you the link to the video, and they would have 30 minutes from the time that we sent them to link to resubmit their masterpiece, the replicated masterpiece, to us. So we then got 3 gorgeous drawings.
Yeah,
and
from
then
Dexter, Brian, and Victoria.
Yes, Dexter, Brian, Victoria were our artists. And then our people that had the time off were Jessica and Amanda. And so once all of that was said and done, we went to them. We gave them the 3 paintings that were replicated, and then we gave them a slideshow of 30 paintings of 10 of each. Were 10 that were similar to whatever the painting that had to be drawn was. So, for example, just for what happened, that the 3 paintings that need to be drawn were a picture of a barn, a picture of the Madonna with child, and a picture of a flower vase. So in the slideshow, there was 10 barns, 10 vases, 10 Madonnas, and child. And they had to go through and name which were the ones that were replicated in the pictures. What were the original paintings? And for each one they got right, $2,000 had been earned for the pot. And then they didn't know this, but they were going to get a second offer of, after the initial one, that they could then change anything that they wanted after that. We'd tell them how many they got right, not which ones were right, but said, you can change any of your answers, but any that you change and if you get right on the second try, will only be worth half as much. It'll only be worth 1,000. And if you change your correct one from an incorrect one, then you just lose that money. And that was just how the whole assignment ran. So I guess just to describe it, Shandy's videos were very funny. She really enjoyed the fat, creepy baby that was the little baby Jesus. That was in that video, is very funny. She just describes like there's this Renaissance woman with a child, not recognizing that was supposed to be Mary and Jesus, which I was very entertained by. And Jesus was a very fat baby.
And he looks creepy. She
looks
said.
Creepy. He's got like cross eyes. She went into a lot of detail for this child for some reason.
Out of all the things happening in the picture, that's the only thing she's stuck with for over a minute, I think.
Yeah, she spent a long time talking about it. The vase was very fun. She was like, there's like this scarf blue thing in the background. There's some petals on the ground. She tried to like get the colors across, but it was funny because Brian had that one, and Brian's like, he did it just with marker on a dry erase board, and he was like, I only had blue, green, and red, so those flowers were going to be red.
Yes. Oh gosh, this assignment just delivered, and then Dexter did like a digital
Hmm.
drawing
And
as
his was
well.
really good.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised at what a good replica that was based on what
Mhm.
Shandy gave him, which really wasn't much.
Yeah, so obviously the mole was in the group of people who needed time off. So she and Jessica were tasked with matching the players' pictures to the originals. And Spencer, can we talk about what Amanda did and how she did?
Hmm. Hmm. So we did it was funny because like while I was doing it, she had like looked through the slideshow quick, and she's like, before I even like suggested Jessica, are these the three right answers? And I was like, yeah, those are the right ones. Here's the pictures of the right one. So
So
the
she
group,
knew all of the answers without us telling her.
yeah, she knew the answers immediately, which then meant that the group actually did well on this one. So she had an uphill battle to try to convince Jessica to go for wrong answers. Um, which she did manage to do for the first one. They like the Madonna with child because uh, Shandy had mentioned that Mary was holding a rose in that one, and that was a big part of Victoria's replica is that there was a rose being held in it, so they were able
And
to
that
be
was
like,
the only painting with a rose in it.
yes.
So
So
there's no not getting that one.
yeah, so they got that one. Amanda was like, I don't think I can get Jessica away from that one, but Jessica talked. She spewed as much shit as she could to get Jessica to pick two wrong ones for the barn and the vase, which is very impressive to do.
Yes, I just a side note, I love that, Amanda has actually been very aggressive with her willingness to sabotage this whole season. And I don't think many people have realized that. I think
Hmm.
Dexter has to a degree, but like she's probably like our most aggressive mole as of yet.
Hmm. She is actively sad anytime money is earned for the pot. Like I was very surprised to see how like just how anti-pot that Amanda could be.
It's
Um,
amazing.
hmm
But then
um,
they were given that offer.
Yes, and that was the unfortunate part is that they were given the offer to switch for it. And Amanda did her best. I honestly think that if she pushed hard enough for it, she could have gotten away with because she can't. There was not the second guess for both of them of the barn and the vase were the correct ones, and so she knew that like if she let Jessica like switch the guesses, and she couldn't reasonably switch the guesses herself to something wrong, so she's like, if these guesses switch, then they're gonna end up being right. So she was just kind of like playing like, oh, I don't want to be risky. I think we should just keep the 2000 that we got, and we should just not do anything. And Jessica, while complaining about Amanda in her diary, which is very funny, Jessica was like, "Oh, come on, Amanda, we should do it. I'm a risky person. I think we should go for it." Um, Amanda didn't want to get caught. She didn't want to sit there. She thought it'd be too obvious for her to like push it. Decided to just let it go and let Jessica switch it. And so then
Mhm.
they did get $1,000 for each of those. So
But
despite Amanda's
considering they
best
should
efforts,
have made $6,000 for it, considering
yeah,
that the fact that they only earned 4,000 is pretty good.
yeah, she put up her best effort and she managed to. I think that if she, which I completely get why she didn't, it's just funny because like I think other people, because like the story would have gotten out and the other people might have read into it more. But I think it's very funny because I don't think Jessica really would have read into Amanda playing it safe at all because she even left a very long diary where like she thought it was kind of suspicious, but it was like, but that's just how Amanda's played. She's not risky like I am, and because like she took the deal and deal or no deal. Well, I'm risky. I stuck with the suitcase, so.
Jessica actually said, I'm like the YOLO person.
Hmm. Exactly. So just knowing who Jessica was, I do think that Amanda could have gotten away with just pushing hard on like, no, we can't swap on anything. But I do think that it was still a smart move to recognize where the limit is,
Mhm.
and wanting to go
Hell, she
undetected.
cost
And
them $2,000 as it
yeah,
was.
yeah, she still had cost the money anyway. So it was still good on her part. And that was impressive to see as always. I'm always impressed by Amanda. And again, then no one in the group went talking about it, like because it was talked about. And I think the only thing was that uh, Dexter's talked about that. Just that I think the mole was in the time off thing, just because Dexter's already on to Amanda. Um, and it's so funny with Dexter too, because it's just like vague stuff, but he even admits that he hasn't had like an aha moment, being like, "Yes, this is why Amanda must be the mole." It's just a lot of that, like his correct assumption is that he would have been eliminated by now if Amanda wasn't the mole. So that is kind of interesting to see that like Amanda is, I still think, doing a very good job moling without being super obvious about it. That even
Oh, she's done an amazing job.
the one person in the game that is onto her doesn't feel confident. Like it's only confirmation bias that is like reassuring him. It's not how Amanda's playing it.
Yeah, and I really feel like again, what's really interesting here is like Amanda is so aggressive in a lot of the moves that she makes, and
Mhm.
yet despite that, like she's still only been voted for by one person ever, and not even
Mhm.
until the second half of the game. Like that really says a lot, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, and that does remind me about like an interesting aspect, I think, to the mole in general, but even like what we're seeing come out a lot in this is how much perceptions paint the reality that these players are seeing around them. Because we can see that Amanda is aggressively like screwing over the pot whenever she can. And so I would say there's a lot of aha moments that Amanda has done that I'd be like, oh yeah, I think I could have caught an Amanda there. And like, that's pretty suspicious that she did that. But because Amanda's personality and like the perception of Amanda in the group is that she's so nice, she's so pleasant, she's so trustworthy, that whenever Amanda doesn't earn money, it doesn't raise the same amount of suspicion that it does for other people just because of how they perceive Amanda, which is just an interesting thing about that. Like if you were to look at cold analytical at the money only and just the actions without looking at who Amanda is, it looks suspicious. But when you add in who Amanda is, it suddenly is like, oh no, this is fine. That's just
Mhm.
who she is. She's not trying to screw us over. She's not the mole in this.
Yeah, it's complicated. That's why I love this game so
Mm-hmm.
much.
Mm-hmm. Because it's the opposite then for Victoria, who we keep seeing as being very pro pot. You know, she really was trying to get that orange sixth orange in
In the
swap.
painting one, she had the clearest painting.
Yes, yes, she had the clearest painting in that. Like she goes for the pot aggressively, but she is just perceived by the group to be quiet, always lurking, a little shady as a result from that. So just the affect that Victoria gives off is mole-like. So she's very suspected, even though she doesn't do anything that is very mole-like. It's
Mm-hmm.
just the perceptions, like it's
Poor Victoria, she always tries so hard.
oh, a poor Victoria. We have more to say about Victoria later too that I'm excited about. But I guess we can get just like
Oh my gosh.
the test. But I just did want to mention that, like, because I think out of all of like the mole games that we've hosted so far, I think this is the first one that has really like shown the power of perception in the mole. To me, I don't think that's come across in any of the other ones. It's the first one they've kind of like been able to like
Yeah, not as
really
strongly.
see
I mean,
that.
there's so many themes of that in other ones, especially, just around the entire aura that is Barb.
Yeah. Of course. But I think that is all of the stuff for swap. So I think we're good for just like the test and just
Yeah.
general round stuff and general game stuff up to this point. So I've rambled a lot, so I'll let you at least take over before I take control back and keep rambling over you.
I suppose we just open up with the quiz then.
That works.
Okay. So yeah, so we're still at just a general mole statements quiz, which I talked a little bit about earlier. So again, it's the style where there's a long list of just items that players can choose from. You can choose as many answers as you want, but you have to choose this one as at least 6. So the statements this time were things like, stuff from the assignment. So in Code Painters, the mole was the talker. In Code Painters, the mole was the artist. In Code Painters, the mole was someone who needed time off. So that'd be 3 different statements. I can choose all of those, none of those, one of those, really up to them. So it's just like there's generally like 8 or so sets of statements, so to speak. And yeah, once again, Dexter for the second time did choose Amanda correctly as the mole. He is the only person who did, and I think, honestly, he's the only person who I think is close right now. Can we
Mm-hmm.
say that, Spencer?
Yeah. We can say Dexter is going to make finals, and I would be surprised if Dexter doesn't win. I'd be surprised if anyone else catches on to Amanda at this
Mhm.
point.
And again, if anyone else does figure it out by the finals, they could just as equally win, because
Mm-hmm.
that's how the game works. You only have to be the best in the final quiz, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
so many people, like, only Jessica has Dexter as her first pick, but I think everyone left, or everyone who's going to be left, has him as their second.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's the thing. So like because Dexter, by knowing who the mole is going to be in the finals, it's hard to imagine that whoever he's in the finals with will pick Amanda as the mole over him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what would have to happen. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm happy with however this game ends. I really am. This is a great cast, but yeah, I think this is Dexter's to lose as of now.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is interesting because he's going to be the only man standing after tonight.
Mm-hmm. The man curse will finally be broken. Unfortunately, much to my dismay. Was there any other stuff you wanted to say about the test as of right now?
I'll let you start because I know you have some specific notes and I can commentate.
Okay. Well, I guess just before we get to Brian's test, we can talk about stuff that we thought might have been interesting in the other ones. Let's see here. What were they? Jessica went mostly on Dexter, but did for an interesting one. It's surprising. It was like, where did the mole rank themselves the last time we did in the second execution order twist, the second time we did it? And the option she picked for that was first, second, or third, that's only Amanda. And that's the spread of that question of like the three options we had for it was one hits Amanda, two of them hit Brian and Dexter, and the other one hits Jessica, Shandy, Victoria. So she oddly enough hit off on that one, happened to pick Amanda. I don't know if that was an accident or if that was deliberate. But that's interesting. Victoria just went every statement she picked 7 statements, every single one of them hit Brian. So again, no spreading there. Shandy
spread the best.
Shandy did some actual spreading. Where
Shandy spread between Brian and Dexter. She's put the majority on Brian and picked Brian as well, but she did clearly spread on Dexter. But by happenstance, which is interesting, half the statements that she picked also hit Amanda.
Yes, so then she ended up with a score of 0, and she also is the only person to pick the minimum, because right now 6 is the minimum, and she only did.
Yeah, so 6. Speaking to that, Brian ended up with a score of, I think, -7, right, Spencer?
Yeah, so Brian ended with 7.
So, and then again, you only had to pick up to 6. So say Shandy, if she got every single one wrong, she still would be staying because she'd have a -6. And again, she didn't get them all wrong. She got, she scored a 0 overall, which is really good, actually. But like, even still, it like shows, you know, if you just do the minimum, you'll make it through.
Because that has been true for every single just statements. This is not like the 4th one we've done. Is the 3rd or the 4th? Third. Yeah, but for each one now, the person that's been eliminated has picked over the minimum and had a negative score above the minimum. So as long as you had picked the minimum, regardless of what the statements were, you would have been safe. You could have picked 4 statements. Like if we have a set of statements that have 4 different potential answers for them, if you picked all 4 of those, like you would have been safe on like the first one. Yeah. Or if somehow we had, or for the first one we had 6 about like what bucket did the mole start, and that was the 6th one. If the 6 statements you picked were all of those, you would be safe.
So future mole players in our series, I am serious. Choose the minimum and spread your answers. If you do that, you will stay a long time in the game.
It sounds crazy, but like, it's true. And I know no one's going to take our advice anyway. So, let's see, what was the other stuff? Oh, I guess before we get into Brian, I did just want to mention another thing about Amanda that I don't think we did last time with the execution order twist. But there was I'd kind of alluded to it earlier. Amanda was the only person to rank herself in the top 3. I think she ranked herself 2nd for who she thinks is going to be eliminated. And was the only person to put herself that high. Everyone else had themselves 4th or lower, which I think was lower. I think actually the highest among the next person was 5th. I remember correctly. 3 people put
Yeah.
themselves 7th. And just like, again, if you logically think about what that twist is, that the group wants whoever's to be eliminated to be ranked higher, so their screen comes up earlier, so they get eliminated. How does the mole go about sabotaging that? Well, the two easiest, most straightforward ways, because you can't talk about it, is just you want to rank whoever's going to be eliminated lower, and you want to put yourself higher because you know for a fact you are not going to be eliminated. So the mole was the only person on that to put themselves very high, and that's again something that
And yeah,
no one thought about.
and because her screen did come up, that was automatic money that the team lost.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry to like sidetrack on that, but with Brian, so he went all in on Victoria, and there just happened to be for this one, there was one statement between Amanda and Victoria that overlapped, and I think for Brian and Dexter there was 2, and there was also one for Jessica and Shandy. There was no overlap. Again, we don't deliberately like think of that. We just make the test questions, and then we see after the fact what the natural overlap is.
Yeah.
It always seems to be it's a random person, but there always seems to be one random person who has 0 overlap.
Always different too.
So, and then even with Brian, like Brian went all 7 on Victoria when there was 8 possible statements. So the one statement that applied to Victoria that he did not pick was the one that also overlapped with Amanda.
Yeah.
So that's just also extremely unfortunate, which I ended up with a -7. But like we had asked him because we were curious, just because of the way that Brian was talking to me. I'm like, oh, could you describe for us your strategy for the test? We haven't looked at it yet, we promise, but we want to know what you're thinking. And Brian had said that when he took it, he didn't go all in on Victoria, but he mainly focused on Victoria, and he also, but was still like kind of trying to hit like Jessica and Dexter, because those are his other 2 suspects. He thinks the mole is one of those 3. And it's just an interesting, I don't mean to be picking on Brian with all of this. Like, this is true for a lot of people that have taken the tests and have played our games. It just seems to be an interesting mole sentiment, is that he says he didn't go all in on Victoria, but he picked 7 statements, and all of the 7 statements hit Victoria. So he doesn't realize, it's just kind of interesting that like when you're taking the test, it doesn't feel like you might feel like you're spreading more than you actually are. Which has been a through line for a lot of the players that have been eliminated. They feel like that they're doing a really good job spreading, when it's like you're really not. You have one major suspect in mind, and like your brain just kind of like wants you to click that option, and you justify it to yourself by saying like, well, this one also hits other people I suspect, so I should hit that one. And so that was just like, it's an interesting thing to see how that happens. And then even further with like the point of on this one, as a result of like Brian thinking he spread better than he actually did, he scored a -5 on Jessica, which is someone he's suspicious of, while he got a -3 on Shandy, someone he isn't suspicious of. Which I do think he even kind of realized that, because like a little bit later he was like, I think maybe I should have spread on Jessica a little bit more. So I think he kept like the test got in his head a bit, and he was like, oh, maybe I didn't do a good as job of spreading as I thought I did. But even regardless, he didn't pick any statements that hit Amanda. None of the 7 that he picked did hit Amanda. But that was just it's just always interesting, like the how much perception plays into them all, and like especially with the test, because it's either we have people that are like, I'm not going all in on somebody, but they actually are going all in, or they have people that are saying, I'm going all in on this person, but then they really aren't. They're spreading much more than they think that they are. It's very rare in the mole for people to be truly aware. But I think that's it for Brian's test, at least. Did you have anything on that?
No, that's it.
Okay, so the very last thing that we're just excited for, in a very mean-spirited kind of way, I'm sorry, is Victoria is obviously not getting eliminated this time, but Brian is, and Victoria has been going all in on Brian since quiz 2, since the second test. I think on the third test she picked picked all 15 of the 15 multiple choice on Brian. Like, she knows Brian's mole. During our mid-season interview, I posited the question to her. Hypothetically, let's say Brian gets executed, who do you then suspect then? And she like refused to answer the question because she's like, Brian has
Brian
to be the
is the
mole.
mole.
But, it's Brian. So we're going to be very mean hosts to to Victoria and to Brian. And we're going to save them for the last 2 screens. And then we're going to do Brian's.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And like, almost always we just randomize the order.
Usually we do, but this time we're going to be mean.
Victoria's reaction, I think, will be interesting because, again, she couldn't even name a follow-up suspect. So, but, Spencer, what are you going to say?
You just go.
So just to do like a full suspect check right now. So again, Brian's leaving tonight. Dexter is on Amanda. Pretty solidly right now. Jessica is absolutely on Dexter. And then both Shandy and Victoria's suspects are going to be executed. Shandy's second suspect is Dexter. Victoria, who knows?
So this could be, I don't necessarily anticipate it, but I can't rule anything out. Crazier things have happened in the mole. This could be Victoria's moment to snatch the win from Dexter if she comes to the conclusion
that would be wild.
That maybe she'll have her come to Jesus moment. She'll be like, oh my God, Amanda might be the mole, and maybe she'll start tunneling on Amanda instead. Yeah. I don't necessarily see that happening.
I don't either, but it's possible.
It certainly is possible, and that would be very funny to see. So I'm a big fan of that. I'm still trying to think if there's anything else.
No, I think that's it. It was a longer round, but it was a lighthearted round. I think everyone really enjoyed themselves this time, especially. So it's going to be sad tonight, regardless. Like all these executions are going to be.
It's always sad, especially this group is just like, not especially like with who we're down with, like this group really enjoys each other's company. Like they're full on in like the mole mindset, like if you ever watch the show, like you have people crying when someone gets eliminated. Like this group is so sad no matter who gets eliminated. They're very close knit. They're very
they're playing very hard, but they all are very likable and really like each other too. So like we couldn't ask for better.
So it does make every execution challenging. And obviously with Brian, I guess we can eulogize Brian onto himself a bit more. We are shocked to see Brian go, and we both thought Brian would win, and we like Brian a lot, so it is very sad.
Yeah. I mean, and he is the reigning winner in any of the games that we host. So like that's really cool. And I have a sense that we'll see him back again at some point.
Hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully he won't be too mad at us and Amanda.
I don't think so.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's it. So I guess we can sign off for this one. We have a very short round, so we'll be back very quickly for the next one because it's just one assignment that should last 2 days at most.
Yes, it'll be a quick turnaround.
So until then, I guess.
Yeah, we will see you soon, our loyal 7 fans. All right. Bye.
Bye.